Hello YouTube, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to another day on planet Earth. So it is my belief and it is my feeling as well. My intuition is telling me that over the next 6 months we are going to see massive transformation. Not that there hasn't been massive transformation over the past year and a half, because there has been. But specifically what we're going to see is a greater increase in people's awareness of what is really going on. Who is really controlling this earth? Who's really controlling the information? And I want to talk to you about the Great Reset. Perhaps you've heard of it. If not, all you have to do is just simply Google it. Google the Great Reset. And as I shared in one of my previous videos, the third matrix is here. That there is a matrix in which we live. I mean, there's the life force energy matrix, which creates three-dimensional reality. So that our essences of souls is that we are beyond three dimensions. We are beyond time and space. But we choose to incarnate in these three-dimensional bodies so that we can experience time and have fun. It's a virtual game for the soul. So there's that matrix. And then there are the matrices that are created by our minds. And right now we have two competing matrices going on. Matrices. One is the matrix that has been dominant for the past couple of thousand years, which is the matrix of the elites. We have been programmed, hypnotized, taught, conditioned, coerced into the current understanding that the mainstream media, I mean that term is overused quite a lot, but mainstream media wishes to give to us an understanding of reality based on a system of control and coercion. But it is a matrix. It is a projection. It is a reality. That if you don't do anything to tap into your soul, it will pull you into a very flimsy, very false, malleable matrix that you can be hypnotized into. But they have to keep hypnotizing you over and over for you to stay in it. Their hypnosis stream is starting to fail. And so what's happening is people are spontaneously waking up. There's been a lot of people who have been awake for a long time, but I myself went through a recent, couple months ago, I went through a recent awakening myself about what's going on in this world. So there is a spiritual transformation that is happening, which is running concurrently with the false manufactured reality that's being thrust upon us. Now, so what ends up happening is that the false matrix, which I will call that, or the lower matrix, the matrix that vibrates from the lower vibrational energy pathway, that matrix is very shaky. And it needs to be forced on people because it is not authentic, it is not organic. When people are left to themselves, their spirit will take them to what actual reality is, what I'm calling the higher vibrational matrix. We have a choice which matrix we want to live in. You can live in the false matrix, which will eventually come apart, and you can choose to live in the actual matrix, which is not going to fall apart. So what is inevitable is that this false matrix that is being projected onto you by the extremely wealthy and the extremely powerful, what is going to happen is that will fail. That is inevitable. Question is, are you going to be part of that false matrix when it fails? Or are you going to choose to listen to your authentic self and go against the manufactured stream? We are designed to either be living from our animal nature or from our spiritual nature. And that is something we created when we incarnated. We chose to have this challenge because the soul wants to grow. So there's no more room for victims. If you are a victim, you will be swallowed up by the synthetic matrix, the biodigital matrix. You will be swallowed up by that if you operate from fear. The good news is that even if you have been hypnotized by the false matrix, by the false information streams of the false matrix or the lower matrix, the good news is that if you operate from fearlessness, you will spontaneously begin to awaken. But that doesn't mean that there isn't risk involved. So, I'm talking around a lot of issues that I can't talk about. First thing that I want everybody to do is I want you to go, if you haven't already, I want you to Google the Trusted News Initiative. Go Google that. Also, go Google the World Economic Forum and Google the Great Reset. Go look at those, because that is what is trying to be forced down your throat. The Great Reset, in a nutshell, and this is, of course, there is a Great Reset coming on a spiritual level. In fact, it's already underway. The Great Reset that is that they, the elites, are trying to force down your throat, they're trying to hypnotize you, coerce you, frighten you into, is the Great Reset is the corporations, because that's the elites. You know, the elites used to be the royal families. The royal families, they owned, whatever country they were in and blah, blah, blah. And they used military might to control people and to gain power and to gain resources. Well, that has shifted. And what we have now is we have corporations. And these corporations have banded together. And I mean, we can look at any industry this has happened. I remember back when I was an actor in Hollywood, back in the 90s, what started happening was that there was this movement for independent film. And there was all these independent film festivals. And so you'd see more and more of these art house independent films would sort of pop up every now and then it would pop up into the big theaters. And this was a big movement, and we in the acting industry, we really liked that. We wanted things to go back to the rawness of what was happening when Marlon Brando was an actor, and film was becoming this raw, independent, artistic thing. We wanted that. And so we liked this idea of independent films because there was the movie studios which just basically just cranked out advertisements, and kept people, hypnotized with, just lower vibrational nonsense. And then what started to happen is every time an independent film company would start to sprout up, what would happen is they would get bought out by a big movie studio. They would keep the name, so whatever the name was, so that it would have the vibe of the name, but it would still basically just be swallowed up by the big movie studios. And that is what has been happening in the information age. In fact, you are watching YouTube right now, which used to be one of these breakout. It was the breakout place where people could go and communicate and share freely, and you could get information that wasn't being censored by mainstream media. And then what happened? It got gobbled up. YouTube is now owned by Google, which is owned by Bill Gates, who has a monopoly basically on the entire information scheme of things. So this is what's been going on, throughout time. What ends up happening is the little guy, he comes up, especially if he comes up with a new invention or a new breakthrough way of interacting with the world on whatever level, that the big corporations see the money possibility and they gobble it up, or they shut them down. One or both usually happens. And so what's happening now is, instead of having kings and queens trying to militarily take over the world, which by the way is still going on, instead of that, you have giant corporations who are seeking to control the world. And if you watch the World Economic Forum, in fact, I'm happy to keep showing this to you, because they want nothing more than for me to keep showing this to you, to understand what it is they plan on doing. So here it is. Have I turned the sound off? These are the 8 predictions. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent, and it will be delivered by drone. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. And it goes on to say other things. So that is the plan that these corporations have. The word multinational corporation is important, because it's not like it was. Like, in fact, the United States was the founding of the first colonies had nothing to do with people coming and wanting to live in a new place. Had nothing to do with that. It was the such and such company of England, and they were coming to get resources, whatever those resources were, animal pelts, gold, tobacco, whatever it was. They were coming for those natural resources. And so the first colonies that were brought over in what is now the United States was a corporation, but it was the crown. The Queen of England had these other corporations that were going out and getting resources. It had nothing to do with what the mythology that we're told, is that the United States was founded on freedom-loving people who were escaping spiritual bigotry. That's true, but those people were also hired. Those people were workers that were hired by these corporations to come and just take the resources from some other part of the world. And that has been the global agenda of the elites ever since. And so now the world is being gobbled up. When they say the United States will no longer dominate, what they mean is that they plan to get rid of independent capitalist ideas. Now, you can have whatever feelings you want about capitalism. That capitalism has some serious problems in it. But at the same time, capitalism is based on the idea that every individual person can go and create their own life, create their own dream. They can own their own home, own their own business. And that's why they say in the beginning, you will own nothing. And then they say you will rent everything. It's, who are you going to rent it from? If nobody's owning anything, who are you renting it from? You're obviously renting it from somebody. Somebody owns everything. That's the underlying message, is that we are going to own everything. You will own nothing, and you will rent whatever you have from us, and you will like it. And that really sums up the mindset behind it. So multinational corporations have every intention of gobbling up the world. That is happening in ways that I cannot talk about on this channel, because this channel is part of the Trusted News Initiative, which is the public relations arm of the giant multinational corporations. Very simple. There is nothing that goes on that they don't control. They control everything that goes on in government. They control everything that goes on in every aspect of media, including internet. You are being watched and controlled by every single piece of technology that you own. And the plan is to create some manufactured, synthetic, natural disaster. That's right, I just said that. They're trying to create what looks like a natural disaster, but it is synthetically planned. It is manufactured. And the worldwide catastrophe that they are actively creating, which was synthetically derived and introduced into the world. The hope is that you will be so distracted and so frightened by that that then they can come in and literally make every single choice for you. They can tell you what to do, where to go, how to function. They will use this disaster as a way of seizing your assets, as a way of, everything, controlling your ability to travel. Every single detail of your life they plan on controlling, but they can't do that if they first don't introduce a manufactured disaster, which will put you in a state of fear. When you are in this state of fear, then you can be controlled, and then you will willingly give up all of your control in the hopes that they will protect you. Right? So that's the great reset that the negative false matrix is seeking to create. In fact, they're deep into it right now, and it is failing. Because the one thing that it needs is consent. You must comply. And people are starting to not comply. More and more people are choosing not to comply. And so we need to talk about what the spiritual reset is, because there is a spiritual reset coming. And they vibrate on similar ideas. One is a lower vibrational idea, and coming from the animal fear-based reptilian, if you want to use that word, that's a perfectly good word to describe it, from the reptilian mindset. And the other one is coming from the spiritual mindset, which comes directly from your soul. And what the multinational corporations want to create is I just had the word in my head, a synthetic quantum field. So you know what the quantum field is according to science, right? According to science, according to physics, scientists are more and more coming to the awareness that there is a quantum field that all matter functions on, which is if whatever happens, if you do something to this chemical or this molecule over here, that is having an effect on another molecule billions of miles away. that there is a quantum field. Some people might want to call it God, might want to call it the universal mind, whatever word you want to use, it doesn't matter. There is a quantum field that everything is connected to. So this already exists in nature. The more spiritual you become, the more you become conscious of your connection to this quantum field. And high-level spiritual practitioners have more connection, and they have more ability to seemingly manipulate this quantum field to achieve whatever spiritual states they are. This is why I have Dr. Manhattan here, because he's a good example of that. This is a symbol of somebody who's mastering the quantum field. And so the synthetic, external, manufactured quantum field is going to be with a biodigital matrix, which is your phone, which is the internet, which is, they're planning to put things into your physical body that they can monitor and control. Right now, what's happening is people are being hoodwinked by being given this Cylon upgrade, which is supposed to protect them from the evil plague. And the Cylon upgrade is actually a biodigital, it's a way to connect to the biodigital matrix. They want to have all of your medical history. And everybody who gets an upgrade, those of you who watch this and you've gotten your 2 or 3 upgrades, you have had to give people your social... Think about this. I want you to think about this. I don't know that this has ever happened in history. I can't remember ever going to the doctor at any point in my life and getting some kind of medical procedure, whether it's an injection or whether it's an operation. I've never had to give over to them my social security number. I've never had to be put on a database. I had an inguinal hernia, and I had an operation for that, 3 or 4 years ago. They didn't put me on a database for inguinal hernia recipients. I'm not on some database where they can look it up and say, all inguinal hernia people, that they've never done that before. But you get this supposed Cylon upgrade that's supposed to protect you, protect your physical health, and you're on a database. And you have to prove, you now have to go around and prove to people on your phone, I'm part of this database. Oh, now I know your medical history. And they're going to do that because they're also, what they're going to do is they're going to hook together your physical medical history with your mental medical history. And if you are somebody that doesn't consent to the mandatory health procedures that they want to do on you, if you don't volunteer for that, they will put you on a database that says that you are mentally incompetent. They will make the argument that this is the only way to keep you physically safe, and you're choosing not to do it. Therefore, you are suffering from a mental illness. You are a threat to society. And then everybody who's on that database, guess what's going to happen if they get their way? They're going to round you up and put you somewhere. Or they'll seize your assets. Or they'll make it impossible for you to, as they have already happened, make it impossible for you to work, make it impossible for you to trade, to have money. This is the biodigital matrix. So this is the false synthetic counterfeit of what the true spiritual matrix is, which is the quantum field. The quantum field vibrates from the heart. It is through your heart center that you are able to connect to this quantum field. It is through your heart that you connect to everybody else's heart. It is in your heart that your soul lives. If you want to interact with somebody from the soul, it must be from the heart. The biodigital matrix is seeking to disconnect you from your heart. It is seeking to, and the way they do that, again, they do the opposite of how the spiritual quantum field works. The spiritual quantum field works by you interacting with other people's heart centers, by physically interacting with people, socially interacting with people, energetically interacting with people, through meditation. For example, there's been many studies that have shown very interesting results. When you get a group of people who meditate on a regular basis and they have an intention towards something specific, there is a real world effect. One study I've shared about before is some city somewhere, I can't remember where it was. They decided to get together, a bunch of, I think they were Buddhist meditators, they decided to get together, I don't know if it was every day or every week or something, but they would get together and they would meditate about bringing down the crime rate. And while they were meditating on bringing down the crime rate fell. When they stopped meditating, the crime rate rose. And so that's just one example. This is the spiritual quantum field matrix. And this is a matrix that can only be stimulated spontaneously. You cannot force it, you cannot mandate it. The quantum field can only be accessed by the individual's power of choice. Everybody can choose not to connect. It is not a requirement. The universe does not demand or require that you connect to the quantum field. It is purely your choice. It is a choice that nobody can take from you, and they can't impose it on you. Whereas in the physical digital biomatrix, they can only do it through some type of coercion, either through some kind of mass hypnosis, where and it's always going to be derived from fear, always. Any time that you are told something based on fear, it is a way to disconnect you from your higher intellect, which has critical thinking and higher reasoning, and it also disconnects you from your heart, which disconnects you. Fear disconnects you from the quantum field. You can't truly intuit what's happening with somebody if you're disconnected from your heart. And so when you are disconnected from your heart and you have been forced into your reptilian mind through fear, then all they have to do is continue to justify and create this hamster wheel of self-justification through fear. In other words, people who are afraid don't want to be talked out of their fear because they believe their fear is keeping them alive. And this comes from, if you're a caveman and you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, if somebody comes along and says, just lie down and relax, you're going to go, hell no, there's a saber-toothed tiger running after me. I am not going to stop being afraid until I've either killed it or I've gotten away from it. Get out of my way. So that hamster wheel keeps you in fear because you think, I need to be free from this danger. Now, in that case, the danger is real. But if you want to keep people in that hamster wheel of fear, you introduce a fear that is false. But once people get tapped into that, because they'll believe they're safe as long as they're operating from fear, when you come along, I do this happens all the time. It's been happening since the beginning of this channel. When I come up to you and I say, listen, you want to be financially successful, you want to be physically healthy, then you have to drop all the fear. You are not living in some world where some false being of light is forcing you to incarnate so they can suck the life force out of you. As long as you believe that, you can be manipulated and controlled. And they say, stop telling me that. Stop telling me that I chose to come here. Stop telling me that I chose to incarnate. And stop telling me that I chose the challenges in my life. That I need that fear in order to feel safe. And you're taking away my feeling of safety by ironically telling me that I'm safe. So once you get somebody into that cycle of fear, of course it creates a physical addiction because of all the stress chemicals as well as the psychological addiction of feeling that you have some kind of control. Fear is about feeling in control. And ironically, when you feel in control, you're willing to give your control up to other people, and they can, again, if you want the Cylon upgrade, we're going to put you on this database where we can monitor everything that you do and say. And if you do not follow, our mandates, then we're going to put you on the other database of the people who are obviously mentally defective, and you're a threat to society. So what we're going to see here in this new spiritual reset is a complete rejection of every external mode of control. We are going to see a complete rejection of the collective. We're going to see a complete rejection of what used to be communist ideals. Now, what has been happening is that this rejection has been going on, but it has been an overreaction. And that has its own set of problems. And those are the people whom I say are right for the wrong reasons. Because if you're right for the wrong reasons, it means that you happen to be coincidentally right. A broken clock is right twice a day. It's pure example. It's pure coincidence. So people who are right for the wrong reasons, who have been fighting against external government control, the majority of them conflate. They take truths and then they conflate a bunch of other things. This has been happening spiritually. This is why people who believe rightly that they are being synthetically controlled by governments and corporations, and they've been feeling that way for years. They've been right about that, but many of them have been wrong because then they conflate and then project it onto the spiritual realm, and they start talking about how false beings of light are forcing you to be, and then they talk about all the horrible things that, this world is doing to us. Or the born-again Christians who go crazy about Satan, and Satan is doing this and Satan is doing that. This is a conflation. Their instinct is accurate that they sense that they're being controlled externally, but they don't have the critical thinking to avoid, then going off too far in one direction or other. But it all comes from this same instinct that people are having more and more, which is, I refuse to be controlled by any external force. I refuse to be controlled by any external force. And so what we're going to see is, when we get more and more connected to the quantum field through our heart, what you're going to see more and more is people rejecting any kind of external control. Which means that governments are no longer going to work. I have a lot of concerns about this world. And I'm changing my thinking about what we need to do to solve these problems. My big thing is climate change. I believe very strongly in the earth. I love the earth. I love nature. It is a fact in my almost 60 years of living that the temperature has increased, and that there has been more extreme weather events as a result of the increase in the mean temperature, which means the overall temperature of the world. I have seen in my lifetime, I have seen the seasons become shorter and shorter. I've seen more extreme temperature shifts. For instance, when I left California 2.5 years ago, when I left California, we were in the coldest winter that had been in Southern California since the 1800s. It was that cold. It hadn't been that cold in over 100 years. And if you're not educated, you'll go, see, there's no such thing as global warming. Look at how cold this is. Until you realize that the reason why it was so cold in Southern California is because normally the Arctic air had been shifted down because it was so warm in the North Pole. It was pushing all of the cold air down, further down than it had been, in a very long time. So when you add up the temperature in the North Pole with the cold temperature, and you add it up and you average it out, the average temperature of the world is much warmer than it's ever been. And this is disastrous. It's happened faster. It's happened faster than it has ever happened in geologic history. So when people want to say there's always been climate shifts, yes, but never, even close, has it been this fast. And so this is something that I care greatly about. And this is definitely something that's been created by human activity. But if you're not educated and you don't like science, and rightly so, because right now people who are claiming to be scientists, these world regulatory agencies, which are owned by the corporations, they're not independent, and quite frankly, there aren't any scientists in it. The people that are in these organizations that all, for some reason, have 3 letters to them, people who are in these regulatory agencies are not scientists. They are, and the scientists that are in those organizations are scientists who are hired by the drug companies to create drugs. So these people are, quote, scientists because they work in labs, but they're not scientists because they know anything about the science of health. And these people are making all of the decisions that are running government health policies. And so people are rightly nervous and distrustful of those scientists, but they can't tell the difference between a real scientist and a scientist that's being paid billions of dollars to create some poison to destroy you. And so for some reason, I'm still trying to figure out, people think that global warming is some kind of elite hoax, which it's not. It's a real thing. I'm very concerned about this. And in the past, if you would have talked to me probably even a year ago, I would have said the way to deal with this is to legislate to protect the environment. But I no longer feel that way, because I believe that the only way out of this crisis is for us to operate spontaneously from the heart, which connects to the quantum field. The soul knows what to do. The spirit knows what is best for the world. And the test is whether or not we will be able to make the choice, to each of us make the choice to live in harmony with our external environment. The less control we give over to the corporations, the more control we have over our individual environments. And so to live in the quantum field means that we are self-sufficient but we cooperate with everybody else. It doesn't mean that we legislate through government and have government control, which if you were to talk to me before, I would have said, the EPA, for example, back when I was a kid, was a good thing because it went around and it told corporations who were polluting the atmosphere and making tons of money by polluting things. The EPA would come in and say, no, you have to cut down these pollutant emissions. You can't dump things into rivers. You can't dump these chemicals into our water. You have to pay money to clean up your mess. Those days are gone. The days when you can have a governmental agency regulate the corporations are gone, because the corporations said, well, all we have to do is just buy out these regulatory agencies, which is what happens now. All of the regulatory agencies that have 3 letters behind them, EPA is one of them, they're all funded and owned by these very polluters. So you can't regulate a company that is paying you to regulate it. I mean, they're being bought off, real simple. All politicians on both sides of the aisle are paid off. So government is no longer going to work. The only thing that will work is when we have the freedom to make our own choices about our own lives, about our own environments, and that means we have to take the risk. We have to take the risk that our neighbor is going to pollute. And we can't legislate what everybody does. We just can't do it anymore. It's not working. And so the one thing that I've had to come to realize is that if I want to be part of the quantum field, I have to trust. I have to trust that when people are given the right and the control to do what is best for them, that is what they will do. But there's a risk that they won't do it. There is a risk that the human race will destroy the earth. And I have to give human beings the right to make that choice. Just like in, my dad, drank himself to death. And that really bothered me when I was a kid, watching him, destroying himself with alcohol. And then at some point, towards the end, I realized, you know what? That's completely his business. If he wants to drink himself to death, that's completely his business. I don't have to be a part of it. It's damaging to me to have him in my life, so I don't have to have him in my life. I can go and live my life and live a healthy lifestyle. That's my choice. He wants to kill himself, that's his choice. And so we have to let everybody make their own choices. And that means we have to accept the risk that human beings may destroy themselves. But the only way that human beings are going to tap into the quantum field and take full responsibility for their lives and be able to operate from intuition, which will always guide them towards what is best for them and best for everybody else. Because when you're doing what's good for you, because we all vibrate on a quantum field, you're also doing what's best for other people. If you're doing something that's harmful to yourself, it'll be harmful to other people. If you do something that's harmful to somebody else, it'll be harmful to you, because we're all in this quantum field together. And this is the major flaw with the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments operate from the assumption that human beings are evil, that they don't have the ability to control themselves, they don't have the ability to do anything good. So we have to have an outside entity, which we will call God, command you to live a certain way. I mean, why does anybody need to be commanded not to steal? I mean, is there anybody that doesn't realize that that's, nobody likes being told, nobody likes being stolen from. I don't like it. They don't like it. They want to choose to steal knowing that it's harmful to other people. Then they're going to suffer the consequences of that. There's no need to command, there's no need to threaten somebody. Don't go and have sex with your neighbor's wife. Why do you need to threaten them with eternal damnation for something that is obvious? Yeah, some people are going to do it. But it doesn't change the fact we all know that. You don't need to tell us the obvious. So we need to operate from even that. You don't need to do anything. What will be most beneficial for our evolution and our survival is if we operate from the quantum field, which means that we trust ourselves, we trust the universe, and we trust each other. And when we do that, these corporations will not be able to control us, because the way the corporations want to control you is through the consumption of things. They even say it. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Everything you need, you will rent. They're telling you that we will control you through greed. Everything that you want out of your greed, we will provide for you, and you will rent it from us. Which means that you will also be the ones making those very things that they will charge you money for. And then they will be in control of how much money you have, where you live. They'll even tell you, we will deliver to you. Which means at some point they're going to start giving everybody, a ration. Okay, you get so much fruit, you get so much vegetables, you get so much this, you get so much that. This will be delivered to you on October 27th. Be there to receive your drone drop. And then you will be required to show up for, because the other thing they say, the World Economic Forum says, everyone has a part to play. In what? In what we're going to bring to the world. What else? You have a part to play. And if you don't do your part, I see here on this this list, I see here on this database that you didn't get the Cylon upgrade. So you're one of the mental defectives. All right, please report to re-education seminars. This is where they're headed with all that. All right, so I'm starting to repeat myself. What we're going to be doing very soon, I'm putting it together. We're going to be doing a ritual, which will involve energy work, all the stuff that I teach you on all these links here, which will involve energy work, which will involve a mantra. The mantra we're going to be using is going to be two mantras. First, we're going to do a mantra of Narasimha in his absolute most fearsome expression, so that we can use the quantum field to mercilessly use the quantum field itself to destroy the deception of those that are trying to control us and control the world. And then, after we do that for 9 days, for 3 days, we're going to do another mantra of Narasimha to calm him down. Because when he gets so furious that when he takes out the demons that are corrupting and destroying the innocence of the human race, he gets so enraged that he can't contain himself. So then we need to bring in his feminine side, which is Lakshmi. We need to bring in the feminine side of him and calm him down. And then we can move towards healing. And this is going to happen. We're going to do it we're going to begin this on the lunar eclipse, which is starting on the 19th. And then there's 2 weeks between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. So by the time we finish this whole thing, we will be just about ready for the solar eclipse. And these two events are going to kickstart this new awakening. And so what we're going to be doing is we are going to be tapping into the rage that human beings are experiencing. People cannot tolerate being lied to. This is the big thing, being lied to and gaslit, and it's so obvious. This is what cops do when they get somebody who's suspected of a crime, and they've got a hard-on to get a confession from somebody. they will hammer them over and over and over and over. And they will tell them, so you went and you did this. You went and you did this. Just admit it. Just admit it. And so the pressure of being told that they have to admit to doing something they didn't do in the hopes that then they'll be let go, they finally admit it. And sometimes they convince themselves that they actually did commit the crime. I know, I mean, it's happening over and over again. I know people, it's one thing, those people who got the Cylon upgrade and didn't know any better. That's one, that's understandable. I almost got it myself until I did some research. But there are people who know that the Cylon upgrade, at the very least, is completely ineffective and at worst could be deadly. And knowing that, they still knuckle under because they can't tolerate the continuous threats and the coercion. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to travel. You won't be able to go out in public. You won't be able to visit your nieces and nephews. The coercion of that finally wears people down, and they go and get the Cylon upgrade knowing knowing everything they know about it. And this is a tactic. That continuous pressure that is being placed on people, the coercion, the gaslighting, and the lies, these straight up, bold-faced lies that are being given to us by the Trusted News Initiative, which is every single form of media information stream. We are being lied to on an unprecedented level. And the rage that people are feeling has gotten to a boiling point. And so this lunar eclipse is happening under the star called Al Ghul, which is represented by Medusa's severed head. And it literally means that people are going to lose their minds with rage. And so we are going to tap into that rage and focus it into a spiritual expression, so that the elites will be mortified. They will be forced to look at their own deceit. And then the solar eclipse is going to then, of course, bring that around. And what you're going to see is more and more revelations. My prediction is after the solar eclipse, you're going to see more and more revelations on a deep level. Just to give you one example, I bought into this story. That the Steele dossier that said that Trump had gone and done some weird sexual thing, and that the Russian government had power over him, and therefore he's colluding with Russia. He did collude with Russia. He did try to influence the election with Russia's help, but he didn't do that. That was a lie. That was a fabricated lie. That's coming out now. The documents of Pfizer, how Pfizer has botched its safety tests for the vaccine. There's been whistleblowers bringing that, and that's coming out even in the mainstream media. More and more of this, there's going to be huge explosive revelations as a result of all this. And so we're going to be involved in that. We're going to be doing rituals. The other thing that I want to share with you is that I've just started, I'm still putting it together, but you can get started with it now. The Lightning Qigong Distance Healing Certification. I'm going to tell you what I do when people come to me for distance healing. And I'm going to teach you, no matter where you are in the Thunder Wizard universe, whether you are, a 5-element Maoshan guy, or if you are subscribe to the Lightning Qigong here at thunderwizard.com, or if you're just somebody that watches the channel. I will give you the ability to use the same methods and the same energy that I use to do distance healing, which can also be used if you want to change the world. If you use this practice and just simply focus on bringing awareness to the world, you will vibrate on the quantum field and influence that in a very powerful way. The more people we have doing that, the faster we can get to a higher awareness and move to the timeline that will be the most wonderful for everybody. Okay? So that's what's going on here. I'm happy to take questions if you have any. This is a question and answer. So if you have a question, you write the word question. As you can see, some people have done that. You write that in all caps. You ask me an honest question. If you have an honest feeling, you can write your honest feeling, and I will respond to that. So first I did get, let's see, hang on, I just have to, I'm selling my surfboards because I'm moving to Florida, because I predict that things are going to get very nasty here in Australia, and I don't want to be here when that happens. Just a second. So I'm telling somebody they can come by this afternoon to look at my surfboard. All right. Sorry about that. You're writing your questions, and then I'm going to read them. Tinix, I don't know. Tinix, question. I'd love to hear as to why these people monitoring everyone want to control us. Well, I think I went into detail explaining that. You have your own conclusions, but you'd like to hear mine. Well, let me be clear. I don't have all the answers. I think I have a pretty good idea of some of the things. Some of it is quite obvious. Quite obvious. You know, one of the ways to control people is with money. So the more money you have, the more control you have. So the first thing that these people want to accomplish is massive profits. My understanding is that the drug companies are making $1 billion a month. So that's an obvious one. Are there other reasons? Yes. Do I know all of them? No. The deeper that I go into the rabbit hole, the deeper and more frightening it becomes, and we start moving into, you know, realms of spiritual darkness. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't even disbelieve if somebody said, oh yeah, the Cylon upgrade, yeah, that was created by aliens in order to terraform the Earth. I wouldn't disbelieve that. At this point, the deeper I go, the more it just gets more and more crazy. But I think on the external level, I think it's fairly obvious, but I don't have all the answers. What do you think? So Kelly, welcome to the channel. My suggestion is that watch the channel. Put the time and effort to watch my videos. There's no need to come on here and just sort of ask these, you know, superficial, hi, what's going on? What kind of underarm deodorant do you wear? You know, if you want to know what my channel's about, you can watch the videos and you'll know. And again, I'd prefer it if you just wrote a question or a feeling, because the rest of it ends up being noise that I have to scroll through. And then I can't get to other people's questions. Let me see. Somebody said hello here. drjweird.thunderwizard.com said hello. I missed him at the beginning. So he has a website, which is drjweird. Weird is spelled W-Y-R-D. .thunderwizard.com. He is one of my certified rune readers. So you can go to his website and get a rune reading from him. And then I answered Tinnick's question. Jedi Black Knight, question. Is there a particular element that connects us to the quantum field? All of them. The quantum field connects to everything. It's connected to my wasabi packet. Connects to everything. The real question is what elements, and by the way, when you're doing the elements, you should do all of them. It's okay to work on one at a time, but you need to, they're a unit. So wood, metal, fire, water, earth. Wood comes up, it overcomes the earth and creates life. Metal chops down the overexpansion of growth. Fire burns the metal, creates purification. Water puts out the fire. Earth soaks up all of those nutrients as the water comes into the earth, which generates life, which then wood comes up. So you do all of them. You don't want to do just one. Tinnick's question, do you believe social media like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram is pointless and a waste of people's time and energy? It sounds like you believe that. My concern isn't so much that they're a waste of time and energy, as my concern is that the Trusted News Initiative is controlling. And normally these things, what the corporations want to do is they want to isolate you so that you cannot communicate. What Facebook used to be and what YouTube used to be is the stuff you weren't hearing. You would go to YouTube. People did this all the time, and I used to give them a hard time for it. But now there's no point. I'd say, don't get all of your information from YouTube. It's fake news. That's where the term fake news came from, was the fake news on Facebook, the fake news on YouTube. And I said, don't get your information from there. But then YouTube used to be an independent thing. It got gobbled up by Google. Facebook used to be an independent thing. It got gobbled up. They all get gobbled up by the corporations, which they want to control all of the information so that they can coerce you and gaslight you and hypnotize you. They want to control all of the governments so that the governments will only mandate what they want, which will help make them more money. They want to control everything. So the problem with Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, we could talk about it being pointless and superficial, and it's keeping you away from your experience with reality, which is a valid point. But my biggest problem is that these are used to isolate people so that like right now, I have to talk in code. Because if I tell you my honest thoughts about certain things, I will get shut down. So my ability to communicate with you is being controlled by somebody else. That's the biggest problem. And it tends to isolate people. And it wants to isolate you so that you cannot share your honest, true feelings, your honest, true experience with others who also, so in other words, if you're being told a bunch of nonsense by the Trusted News Initiative, and your instincts are going, and let's say you don't know what's going on, but your instincts are going, this doesn't sound right. There's something about this doesn't feel right. And then when people would go onto Facebook and say, hey, did you hear what the Trusted News Initiative said? It says that we all have 3 nostrils. And I'm pretty sure I only have 2 nostrils. What do you guys think? Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. I was starting to think I was a freak. I also only have 2 nostrils. Me too. I only have 2 nostrils. Well, they don't want that. Because if everybody's communicating and sharing their honest experience, then they can't hypnotize you into thinking that you need 3 nostrils. And if what they want to do is get you to go into the plastic surgeon to get a 3rd nostril, put into your nose, and that they want everybody in the world to have 3 nostrils, it gets difficult if you guys are talking to each other saying, I only have 2. I don't need a 3rd one. That's the thing that bothers me the most about it, is the gaslighting, the isolation. This is the big thing, isolating you. Mandating isolation so that you can't connect, which means that you never, the more that you talk, the more that you connect to the quantum field and connect to each other on an authentic level, the less power they have. Ron of the Sea question, are those who have taken the Cylon upgrades been cut off from the natural quantum field? No, not at all. Like I said, everybody can make mistakes, and absolutely not. And we don't know. We don't know the long-term effects, but I absolutely believe that people who have gotten the Cylon upgrade should be doing the exact same things that I'm doing. You should get your hands on all of the forbidden medications that will cure the plague. You should get your hands on all of those, and you should be taking all of the supplements and the vitamins that I'm taking in order to keep myself healthy. If you've gotten the Cylon upgrade, you should act as though you have the plague and do all the things that people do to avoid the long haul symptoms of the plague. Am I making sense? Definitely not. This is so that don't take it to that extreme. Of course not. Even if somebody, was doing things for the wrong reason, you can wake up. There's no time limit for awakening. Everybody can wake up. And there isn't anybody who hasn't been, part of the false narrative. There isn't anybody. I myself was, and there's probably stuff I still need to awaken to in order to continue to transcend. So no, let's not get into that kind of legalistic thought process. We don't need any fear here. What else? Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. He is one of my certified astrologers. You can go to his website if you want to get some great astrology reading, which you can find out more about some of these things we've been talking about astrologically. I don't know, Jimify, if you really want to ask a question, please do me a favor, pay attention, put effort, write the word question, and I'll look at it. And it's also best, if you're new to my channel, if you ask questions about things that I talk about. You say, what about SCP declass? That's not a question. So look, you want to survive this, you're going to have to be able to communicate effectively, you're going to have to be disciplined, and you're going to have to be generous with your communication. Sitting on your phone and with your thumb, you only want to put 3 or 4 words, and you throw out a "what about this?" is not a question. Question has a subject and a verb and an object, and it has a point to it all. Don't be so disrespectful to yourself that you don't give other people the awareness of what it is you want to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish with that question? Try a little harder. Jimify. So that was Kel Halcombe said, what about this and what about that? I don't even know what that is. He who controls weather controls the world. Now maybe that's true, but this is, again, here let's talk about conflation. So I know that a lot of you, first off, let's just be real here. I'm still right about a lot of things that I've been saying for years. The vast majority of people who buy into conspiracy theories, even if you're right about some of it, the vast majority of them are people who are uneducated and full of fear. And what ends up happening when you're uneducated and full of fear is that you get a rush off of talking about what they're doing to us. And it becomes fun when you start going even further. That's where QAnon comes from. QAnon is a psyop, in case you didn't know. But this is the same thing, knowing, having a feeling and knowing that somebody is controlling your life and your world, and you feel that you are being thrown into a false matrix. That feeling is accurate. But to then conflate it and go to the degree of saying that false beings of light are forcing me to reincarnate, and then what ends up happening is half the time you say something correct, like the Cylon upgrade doesn't work, and it's the plague is a manufactured illness that was made in a lab and thrown out into the world. That's accurate. It's a conspiracy theory, but it's accurate. But then you conflate it. It doesn't mean just because there are conspiracies that every single conspiracy theory is true. NASA did not make up a lie about the world being round. The world is actually round. But we're also being lied to at unprecedented levels. If you're not educated, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So again, I don't know about half of this stuff. I don't, just to be a weather. I was responding to weather control. We don't need to control the weather. They're doing a good job. Every time you drive your car, you are affecting the weather. Every single time you do that. So why do you need to get wrapped up in weather control when your car is changing the weather every single day? This is what I mean. You'll go drive around in your car, you'll say that global warming is a hoax, and then you'll go off on they're controlling the weather. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But let's focus on the stuff that we do know. We do know that every time somebody gets a Cylon upgrade, there's a good chance they're going to die, just from the Cylon upgrade. We know that every time somebody gets a Cylon upgrade, that there's a good chance that their immune system has been weakened, and they'll be more apt to get the plague. We know this. Let's focus on what we know, instead of getting off on creating more and more stuff and conflating things. For instance, I'm here to tell you that you cannot trust the government. You cannot trust them. And you cannot trust the government no matter who's in control. Like right now, there are some politicians that I really like. I like what they're doing, but that's because the things that they're doing happen to fit within things that I'm wanting to accomplish. Like I'm moving to Florida because they've made it illegal to have any kind of mandates. And I like that. But it doesn't mean that I trust that guy. It doesn't mean that I think that if that governor were to become president, that he wouldn't then also be controlled by the same corporations that are controlling Biden right now. So you have to be able to pick what, again, critical thinking asks, when is something partially true and partially false? When is something sometimes true and sometimes false? For instance, it is true that Biden is the worst communist dictator the world has ever seen. I mean, on different levels, but the things that he has done has just been unprecedented. The worst president in history. But that doesn't mean that Trump was a savior. Trump is a psychopathic narcissist, a liar, and a cheat, who was the first person to create warp speed, which then brought the Cylon upgrade into existence. So he is just as responsible. They're both bad. You have to learn not to conflate, not to bounce from one to the other. You can't do that if you don't have critical thinking. So Kel Halcombe, I don't know what SCP is. So if you write the whole thing out, I might know. Sorry, I'm being controlled by the digital matrix right now. All right, what else? Thunderous Straves Rangel question. I've often dreamt about enough of us mastering the elements in order to help balance the earth together. Does that seem realistic to you? Yes. Do you think we can make a change using energy work? I know we can. I think what I'm saying is that that's the only way that we can change things now. You can't do it through politics. You can't do it through activism. I'm a firm believer in activism. Like right now, there's people in the country I'm in right now that are marching, huge marches and demonstrations on a daily basis, peaceful demonstrations, refusing to be told what to do with their own bodies. And that does eventually, if you keep putting that kind of pressure, it eventually changes things. But ultimately, the only thing that's going to change things is your consciousness. If you change your consciousness, you'll change the world. Energy work is the most powerful way to vibrate the quantum field. In my experience, I haven't experienced everything. I can only tell you what I've experienced. This stuff is the most powerful way to to vibrate the quantum field. So I'm not the only game in town. There's plenty of places to go, plenty of energy practices and spiritual practices, but I want to give you what has worked for me and what I believe to be the most powerful. And the more research you do on what it is I'm teaching here, you'll understand why. But to answer your question, yes. Cal Helcom, so that's not a question. All right, so if you have a question, I'll answer it again. So Cal, it would be great if you did that. If somebody can't contain themselves, I may just kind of put them in a timeout, because I really don't want this to be a place where people just start spouting, whatever, verbal diarrhea is coming out of their head. What else? Baba Junso, question. How can we bring together the reptilian anointed and unreptilian anointed? Real simple. Just do. Just, the problem is that the people who are choosing not to get the upgrade are being targeted. So this is the fear. You guys, I don't have to tell you what you already know. It's like cooties. You remember in elementary school when girls had cooties? And so all the guys would get together and get away from the girls. And in my experience, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was a kid, girls in elementary school would get crushes on boys, but boys didn't want anything to do with girls. And so the girls would want to connect and want to, give love letters to the boys, and the boys would get together and they would talk about the cooties and, oh, she touched you, you have cooties. And that's what it's like now. It's like, if you've chosen not to get the Cylon upgrade, you have cooties. And again, for some reason, if you go to the Apple store and you want to get a laptop, they'll show you the laptop and they'll tell you how this is the best laptop in the world and it gives you protection from internet viruses and blah blah blah. So buy it, and you take it home, and it doesn't work. You're like, hey, my computer doesn't work. And you call the guy up at Apple and you said, my computer's not working. He says, oh yeah, I know. It's because the guy next door doesn't have it. What? So if you get your neighbor to buy the same computer that you have, then yours will work. But mine won't work if he doesn't have it. Right. So we're doing that, and the fight between the Cylon upgrade and those that don't have the upgrade is coming from the top down. Because if they stop doing that and they stop saying, if you get your computer will work fine even if somebody else doesn't have the same computer as you. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not talking about computers. You get that? So when that becomes clear that what they're saying doesn't make any sense, then we don't need to fight anymore. I don't judge anybody if they've gotten the upgrade. I figure that they didn't know any better. That's great. And you survived and you didn't go home and, I'm laughing about it because it actually does happen. People go home and die. Like they'll be dead the next day. That does happen. But if that hasn't happened, then there's no reason to believe that it will, but you should treat yourself as though you have the plague. You should take all of the remedies that other people are taking to prevent getting the plague. You should be doing that same thing. And so what's there to fight about? All right, there we go. All right, I don't see any more questions. So get ready for upcoming. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe, because I'm going to be giving you the ritual coming up here pretty soon. What we're going to do between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, which is going to be extremely volatile. If Vedic astrology is correct, then things are going to be extremely volatile between the lunar eclipse and throughout the month of December and January. Things are going to be really intense and crazy and all of that. If you want to know, if you want to hear me talk about all this stuff without any censorship, you can go to my BitChute channel. Go to bitchute.com and look for this same channel, Thunder Wizard, DOTCOM. You can also go to my Odyssey channel, odyssey.com, and again look for Thunder Wizard, DOTCOM. I like Odyssey because it mirrors this channel, but I don't like it because it's very glitchy. So I'll be uploading some stuff on those other channels. So Kim Nunya has a question but hasn't finished writing it out, so I'll wait. I'm waiting for your question. I assume Kim is writing. Kim Nunya, let me ask you a question. Are there things that if I talk about on YouTube that I can get deplatformed? And if I were talking about those things, would I admit it? So think it through. I think it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about. And don't put me in a position to say something that's going to get me deplatformed. If you want to find out what I'm talking about, I just told you where to go. You can go to my BitChute channel or my Odyssey channel. By the way, Odyssey is spelled ODYSEE.com. Sorry about that. Okay? All right, there we go. All done for today. I will see you guys next time. Be safe. And check out the new distance healing certification if you want to learn more about that. Go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe. If you want the power of Dr. Manhattan, if you want the power of Lightning Qigong, subscribe to that. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. You've got nothing to lose. That's it for me. I will see you guys when I see you. Whoop, that's not working.